I'd like to say to everyone here in this room that it's been a real pleasure to have you, and also, since I'm a little older, say with your father, in so many things that have helped grow and develop this community, our businesses, our hospitals, and our churches, and our educational institutions. It's a real pleasure that this community has people like Bartell and his family, and Molly was right with us too on many things that they've done. So I thank them. And I particularly want to thank you, Bill, for tonight. I appreciate your inviting me to be here because it's been an important thing in my life as to how well this has been done. And I don't take credit for the doing well of it, but I think you and your staff and the others in the medical center, we get a big hand for such a marvelous, we never dreamt it would be anything that we have now. Before I go any farther, I've got to especially recognize somebody who was with me for 63 years of all of this journey here in San Antonio and had her knees in the pews at Christ Episcopal Church for both this medical center and Methodist Hospital in it when they were really struggling. And that is to recognize my wife, Pat, for nothing that I have done would ever have any meaningful thing if it were not for her. Pat, I thank you. I'm going to tell you a story. I hope it won't be too long, but this involves every single one of you in this room. I'm going to tell you about a young man that back in early school days was exposed to the classics, and one of the things that he has always remembered was a poem by Elizabeth Barrett Browning. It's called Sonnet 43 of the Sonnets to the Portuguese. It's her most famous poem, I think, and many of you all probably know how it goes. How do I love thee? Let me count the ways. I love thee to the depth and breadth and height my soul can reach. Well, this has been something that's been at the heart of that young man for many years. And I'll fast forward you from the early school days when he learned of this poem, back later on to marriage, to a family, to children, and a career. And at some point in his life, at some point there, he fell in love with the idea of a medical center and a medical school here in this community. One of the things that's important is that we didn't have that. We had a few hospitals and were really less. I can remember very well being told that young man knew that we had less hospital beds than the average for our population for most communities, and a medical center would improve that. So joining the resuscitated medical foundation that didn't have the real luck it wanted in getting the University of Texas Second Medical School. It went to Dallas, but that medical foundation was still alive. He joined that foundation and worked hard for the idea of a medical school and a medical center. He was invited to be also a part of a group of large taxpayers who called on the county judge when the vote was at 2-2 for building a new teaching hospital here to bring the medical center to San Antonio. And there, the county judge agreed, and the taxes were doubled to all of us in San Antonio for the wonderful university hospital that we now have. This young man also raised money to augment the salary of the very first dean of the medical school. I don't think it was much money. I think we probably almost spill a little less than that each day in our lives. But that was another effort, and there was also a drive to raise money to build a new hospital. All the rest of them were pretty much in the town, and that was the argument. The new one was going to be in the new medical center with the medical school. All during his life, that young man has spent time raising money, supporting, abating, and encouraging the development of this medical center. And of course, what we now call the Health Science Center is even a much greater effort or part of that than could have been just a mere medical school. But I think each and every one of you here tonight will agree that the level of care, the level of medical care in this community is many, many times greater today than it was before the university came with the Health Science Center here in San Antonio. It's a wonderful thing, and I think it's probably no secret to you, and you'd already figured it out, that that young man that spent all that effort in those days, his response was many times over by what has happened at this medical center. And each and every one of you are responsible for it. I think the report of the Medical Foundation this year said 29,000 people are in medical employment at the medical center. 29,000 others are in other administrative jobs, and 12,000 volunteers work there every year. Every year, or every day now. That's 70,000 people, and they take care of over 500,000, both in-house and outpatient care this last year. It's something that I think each and every one of us here can be very proud of, and I know that I have been rewarded many times over because my family has been the recipient of so many things. My father spent his last days there before he died of cancer, and life, the circle of life is shown by the fact that 12 of my grandchildren and my one great-grandson have been born there in that hospital. Others in the family, including a cousin who had one of the early bone transplants, her life was extended by the Health Science Center. I'm going to say that my wife herself would not be here tonight if it were not for the care of two of the doctors in the teaching hospital that to this day are still doing research there. A son was saved from a ruptured increment when he had an accident, and my niece was brought there after a motorcycle accident and had her leg saved. I could go on and on because there have been so many other ways that our family has benefited by consultation, particularly with members of the medical school, of the faculty. But I want to let you know that Elizabeth Barrett Browning comes around now in full circle. As I say to each and every one of you in this room who've done so much, both in your practice, in your work, in your interest, your volunteering, and your philanthropy to build this medical center, and particularly the Health Science Center. So I say over and again, Elizabeth Barrett Browning's words ring in my heart tonight when I say to each and every one of you, how do I love thee? Let me count the ways. My family's cup runs over with what you have done for us, and we know that your goodness and your loving kindness will follow us all the days of our life. Thank you.